So I think the meeting is start here. So hello everyone, my name is Harjot Singh Nijjar and we are going to present our assignment which is on Deviance, Crime and Social Control. It is in the sociology subject. You can find it on online chapter 7 in Sociology Unlocked edition 2. So today we discuss about this chapter 7, Deviance, Crime and Social Control. So like Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs to Dexter Morgan in Dexter, the figure of the dangerous individual who lives among us provides a fascinating functional figure. Like the term psychopathy is often used to emphasize that the source of the disorder is internal based on psychological, biological, and genetic factors, whereas sociopathy is used to emphasize predominant social factors in the disorder, the social or familial sources of its development, and the inability to be social or abide by societal rules. Like in a modern society characterized by the predominance of a secondary rather than primary relationships, the sociopath or psychopath functions, in popular culture at least, a prime index of contemporary social unease. In many ways, the sociopath is a cipher for many of the anxieties we have about the loss of community and living among people we don't know. In a much more sophisticated way, this was also the premise of James Fallon, a neuroscientist at the University of California. In the Alzheimer's study, he discovered a brain scan from a control subject that indicated the symptoms of psychopathy, and he had seen in the brain scans of serial killers. He broke the seal that protected the identity of the subject and discovered it was his own brain scan. He had to acknowledge that environment and not just genes played a significant role in the expression of genetic tendencies. Firstly, psychopathy and sociopathy are recognized as problematic forms of deviance because of prevalent social anxieties about serial killers as a type of criminal who lives next door or blends in. Many individuals with the biological and genetic makers of psychopathy are no dangers to society. Key to pathological expressions of psychopathy are elements of an individual's social environment and social upbringing. Finally, in Fallon's own account, it is difficult to separate the discovery of the aberrant brain scan and the discovery and acknowledgement of his personal traits of psychopathy. This is the problem of what Ian Hacking calls the looping effect. In summary, what Fallon's example illustrates is the complexity of the study of social deviance. John Hagan provides a typology to classify deviant acts in terms of their perceived harmfulness, the degree of consensus concerning the norms violated, and the severity of the response to them. Much of the confusion and has to do with the different sets of rules that apply inside and outside the arena. The second sociological insight is that deviance is not an intrinsic attribute of individuals nor of the acts themselves, but a product of social processes. One way in which certain activities or people come to be understood and defined as deviant is through the intervention of moral entrepreneurs. Howard Becker defined moral entrepreneurs as individuals or groups who, in the service of their own interests, publicize and problematize wrongdoing and have the power to create and enforce rules to penalize wrongdoing. However, in the 19th century, sexuality become a matter of moral, legal, and psychological concern. Homosexuality was defined as not simply a matter of sexual desire or the act of sex, but as a dangerous quality that defines the entire personality and moral being of an individual. From that point until the late 1960s, homosexuality was regarded as a deviant, closeted activity that, if exposed, could result in legal prosecution, moral condemnation, ostracism, violent assault, and loss of career. The point is that, to whatever degree homosexuality has a natural and inborn biological cause, its deviance is the outcome of social process. It is not simply a matter of the events that lead authorities to define an activity or category of persons deviant, but of the processes by which individuals come to recognize themselves as deviant. In the process of socialization, there is a looping effect, as we will see later in this chapter. It is central tenet of symbolic interactionist labeling theory that individuals become criminalized through contact with the criminal justice system. The well known problem of using imprisonment to respond to criminal offenders is that prison influences individual behavior and self understanding, but often not in the way intended. When we add to this insight the sociological research into the social characteristics of those who have been arrested or processed by the criminal justice system, variables such as gender, age, race, and class, it is evident that social variables and power structures are key to understanding who chooses a criminal career path. One of the principal outcomes, yeah, sorry, like one of the principal outcomes of these two sociological insight is that a focus of social construction of different social experience and problems lead to alternative ways of understanding them and responding to them. The process of classifying kinds of people in social processes that Hacking called making up people and Howard Becker called labeling. Mental cases and sociopaths are regularly ready to deal with their condition and pass an ordinary residents despite the fact that their ability for control and mercilessness can have crushing ramifications for individuals around them. The term psychopathy is frequently used to underscore that the wellspring of the issue is inside in view of mental, organic, and hereditary variables. While sociopathy is utilized to stress overwhelming social elements in the turmoil, the social or familial wellsprings of its turns of event and the powerlessness to be social or keep culture principles set by Hare in 1999. In this sense, sociopathy would be sociological infection second to none. It involves an inadequacy for friendship, yet many records of sociopaths depict them as being willing, alluringly sure, and active. In a cutting edge society portrayed by the transcendence of optional instead of essential connections, the sociopath or insane person capacities in mainstream society in any event as a great list of contemporary social discord. The sociopath resembles the decent neighbor nearby who one day goes off or is uncovered to have had an evil second life. For numerous points of view, the sociopath is a code for a large number of the nerves we have about the deficiency of local area and level among individuals we don't have the foggiest idea. In this sense, the sociopath is an extremely present day kind of freak. Contemporary ways of dealing with psychopathy and sociopathy have zeroed in on organic and hereditary causes. This is a custom that returns to 19th century positivist ways to deal with abnormality, which endeavored to track down an organic reason for guiltiness and different kinds of free conduct. This, like many more examples that if you want to read, you can find it on sociological unlocked edition too. So now my team member Valentina talk to you about little more about this concept. So Valentina, go ahead. Yeah, Valentina, are you listening me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So so at the beginning, my name is Valentina Luna. We are representing Deviant Sociology, and this is chapter 7. At the beginning of the lecture, we talk about sociopathy and psychopathy. There are two main concepts. The first one, sociopathy, it talks about how the people get their problems by their environment and by the people that are around. And sociopathy, it means that that person it got the that behavior due to genes or illness. So in this chapter, we see the difference between the gene and the environment and how they influence people. Uh, and they talk about serial killers and how they are divided between uh, psychopaths and sociopaths. Um, for me, that was really interesting because the example of this researcher that he was doing all this study about the serial killer brains, and they find out that in their brain of the serial killers, the front and the temporal lobes, they were affected, and in that way all the empathy and the morality it was affected at the same time. And in that moment you could see the genes and how the biology works. But on the other side you find that the same guy that was doing this the research, uh he was having the same condition, he was having the same diagnosis. So in this case we see the looping effect. You can see the difference between, like, when you have the biology, when your biology is not working or is affected, and even though you have that condition you could overcome that problem, like the researcher did in that time. He he had a condition that it works, that is called a prosocial psychopath, that they lack of empathy because of their biological condition, that they're feed into the society, but keep going and keep behaving like the rest of the society does. Because this guy, he grew up in a loving family, and the environment affect his brain and how he behave. And for me, that was really interesting because I'm taking psychology class, and you could see that in some studies you find that in our brain we have, in our genes too, we have a gene that is called warrior gene. And this gene, it could be triggered by our environment. If we're growing up in a violent or in aggressive environment where you could see your fathers fighting every day, that gene could be triggered, and that will be end up in a violence environment. You could be like domestic violence. You could be a partner that is hitting your wife. So that's how the environment affects our behavior. And following, we could see this summarize the two main deviants in society that are psychopaths and sociopaths. Those are the main ones. And at the same time, we follow with the deviants and how these are constructed by the theories that we studied later, like earlier, the structuralismo, sorry, the funcionalismo, the social conflict, and the social interactivism. So in the first one, we could see that the main actor, the father of this theory, he said that deviants they bring the society together, because when you see that someone is acting wrong and someone is being punished for acting wrong, you at the same time by watching you learn that that is wrong. For example, if you when you were in high school and you skip a class and you see that your classmate he was grounded, you'd see like, okay, he was grounded, I shouldn't be doing that, right? So they talk about how these deviance behavior construct our society, because they 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 say that when you watch a bad behavior you learn from that. And we also talk about the social disorganized. That means that the main cause of the deviance is that that person he grows up or he develops in with weak ties and with weak social control. So they gave the example of immigrants when they came to America, in those towns and areas where all the immigrants they were gathered. You could see that the social control they were different that in the American ones, because the immigrants they were just adapting to this situation, and they were seen as a deviants because they were not able to fit in the American norms. And as a regulator, some American government they start programs where all the immigrants could learn how to the American society works and how to fit well. And that's the social disorganization. And the other one is the essential nature. That is that when you when you that the deviants they bring morality to our society. And the other example of functionalism is the extreme one. So that they talk about how the society they set up goals and you have to achieve them and you have to fit in those goals. For example, the American dream, they're basing financial goals. So if you're successful financially, it means that you're gonna fit in those goals. Uh, a deviance could be the hippies or the homeless that they don't have a house and they just drop off those goals. They could be seen as a deviance. And in the conflict theory, for sure, we notice the inequality. They say that the base of the deviance is inequality, because in poor neighborhoods or in poor areas, the social control is really less. And they show up a study where in poor neighborhood you see that the parents are not around, so the kids are not in control, they're not having that figure that could tell them what should you do, what should you know. And in the rich neighborhoods, all the parents are around, so they have the financial sources to have someone at least to watch the kids and teach them. And at the same time they are going to high quality schools where they are taught how to behave and how to learn, and they have all the tools be financially stable, and at the same time grow up as a human being. And we could see all the type of deviance depending on the theory that we were already study, and the examples that we perceive in this society. And that's it. That's it for today. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Valentina. So, guys, we will discuss a little bit about after listening the Gagandeep Singh's idea. So, Gagandeep, please go on.
My name is Gagandeep Singh. Today I talk about in social society, uh, deviance, crimes, and control, social control. Let's start. Violation of culture norms is recognized by the term deviance. Crime is the one familiar type of deviance. The violations of norm of the society play a part of criminal law. The domains includes a wide range of other acts of the Bohemian now looking at pre-section between the normal and information divines. Informal divines and violation of culture norms that are controlled by the by a society but not by the government. For in instance, someone does tattoo share month say, I cannot believe you got a tattoo. That is an informal sensuation and it is not a crime of get a tattoo. But it is a divine attitude and we sanctioned that informally. But one state it was crime to get a tattoo. In fact, in Oklahoma, before 2006, you could not legally get a tattoo in the state. You had go to the Texas or to Kansas or Missouri to get a tattoo because it was against the law. There was a state that forbade it is that is a act of defiance. It is a being formally defined by the government as a legal act. The distinction between defiance on the one hand and the crime on the other hand is that crime is a formal fact act that has a written down statute as a punishment that is associated who sought not this if you do will surely get punished by the law. This is distinction between the formal device and information leads us to decision of the formal social control and information social control. Social control is a way to we control people behavior around us. If someone act a way that we do not appreciate, we sanction them. Information we many tell them you should not do that. We may look at them in a funny way, and the idea there here is where we let them know that they are acting in the way that we believe in deviant or social control represents the action of the government, a government agency, a policy agency whose job is to find people who are the violate crime, to arrest them and take them into crime justice system to isolate them from the rest of society and the punish them of the constitute them the formal social control apparatus that typically study is called the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is composed of the police, the court system, and correctional system. Purpose of this system is to enforce the criminal code of the formal rules that culture has created to make sure that people follow the rules. All right, we have been talking about people who are the violent norms. We have been talking about the people violent these norms, and these are whole sets of the theories about the way people commit crime of the behavior definitely and we talked about the information and social control do quickly that try to hinder people to behave why culture says people should behavior as according to theory of social control we have trust together demands. That's all. Thank you. This is my topic.
Yeah, so thank you guys for your participation. Like, in my point of view, there are some examples of deviance like robbery, theft, rape, and assault. Like, this is
And
because some people do not have some jobs, like do not have resources to live. Like in my neighborhood, it's my real life example. In my neighborhood, there is a woman lived as a rental. She is something like a psycho. She called the cops in the small things, like if someone see her. So I think this is a mentally upset because it's. I think in my point of view, this is because like something happened in the past in his lives, in anybody lives who lived like a psycho. So I think it sometimes more people are irritating with someone, and some it's example like in India. I think many students in the past commit suicide because of pressure in studies, and for the visas, for the study permit. And like in, if we talk about the crime, I think Mexico and Afghanistan, a lot of crime happened in that country. So I think this is a part of their culture. Like in Afghanistan, people moreover live with their guns, and now the Canada helps, USA helps a lot, and make refugees shifts to the country, another country. So I think this is the examples regarding this chapter.
Yeah,
uh,
that's true. That reminds me of the social conflict that there's some people that they commit crimes because they don't have the resources, they don't have food, they don't have shelter. So they're forced in some way to commit those crimes to survive, basically, because of the inequality of the society.
Yeah, of course.
one last example is in these days my neighbor is new now. She is lady is Lynn. She is not. She is always angry to me, every person because she is smoke every day in a society. Every person is asking to his she is not smoke to do, but she is not. His behavior is very not like that. Not good. She is always government in Canadian government pay for $2,000 in a monthly because she is not jobless, and she is apply for AI for Canadian government. She paid for good earn for 2,000 in a Canadian dollar. She is always no like that. She's no uh, take care for health. She's always smoking. She's always use adult. Whoa.
Yeah, don't worry, Kamboj, I complete this. Like,
Yeah,
I had traveled to the Vancouver when I arrived at Canada, and I saw that people lived on the footpaths because they don't have any
yeah,
resources, not homes, and I think they take drugs also. So
yeah,
this is
yeah.
the
Harjot,
example. This
true,
is
yeah.
also the main example of this chapter. As so, what do you think about Valentina? What do you think about that?
The situation that Vancouver is going on, there's a lot of poverty, and is you could notice that on the streets you could see the homeless without any shelter, sleeping on the streets and asking for any coins or any cash that you could have. And in the same area you could see there's a really rich people living in really expensive apartments in downtown, and you could notice that in the same square there is the inequality, the two types of people, the rich and the poor.
Yeah, like I collected the information regarding that homeless people, and someone told me that government provide the apartments to that people, but they do not like to live in that
Government,
apartment, and they can give to the another for making give the another
means
people at at the rent for making the money for the
yeah, too much
drugs, for the
stress
streets.
for homeless people. Too much stress for the homeless people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, guys, this is our presentations about Deviance, crime, and social control. And if you want to read about more, I can add the link in description about the Sociology Unlocked edition 2. So that's it. Now I can stop the recording. Yeah.